guns when we're live. Oh,
Joey wants to know when this thing's going to start.
hey, welcome to the Gooners podcast. Hi, Joey. I love you, and Denver is a better city now you're home. Mike, we are celebrating a few things tonight. First, I want to say to you and your family, happy Hanukkah.
Oh, thank you so much.
I would like to say that your wish came true with the Arsenal destroying the scum.
Oh, they did? I didn't realize we played this weekend.
Yeah, I had a little game this weekend. I'm not sure if you know, but
I'm worried. I'm excited about that, but I'm worried about you, Andy. I'm worried about you. I'm concerned about you. Are you holding up okay after this weekend?
I am. Why do you ask? What happened this weekend?
Well, you took a bit of a beating last night.
You know, when your star running back goes down, you have no chance.
Wow. Yeah. Was your star running back going to score 70 points?
You know
anyway,
what? I even said to you, I'm going to get absolutely killed this week, and you still talk shit.
Well, look.
And you're going to beat me the next 2 weeks in playoffs, so just get over it.
What goes around comes around. But anyway, no, 19. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that song, but we have not lost in 19 games, and I could not be happier. And I cannot be happier to introduce our guest. I love me a good segue. Guest tonight is Mr. Sean Swaby from Bleacher Report UK, Bleacher Report Football. I mean, what's your official title?
We used to be Bleacher Report UK. At some point, we rebranded. I believe it was about a year and a half ago. We changed to BR Football and decided to ditch cricket and rugby and the likes of being just kind of this UK all-encompassing publisher. But now we just focus on football or soccer, which I'm not allowed to call it anymore, but I am American. So, which is great because I was so out of my element talking about things, trying to do like rugby and F1 and stuff like that. It was difficult, but hey, here we are.
Yep. Well, I was looking at your bio because out of the two of us, I do some research AF, and you've been journalism all your working career, it seems. So let's get a little background because I'm interested. I mean, it seems like an interesting career, an interesting job path. So you're in Southern California since around 2002. I don't know anything about that because I'm creepy, but I'm not that creepy.
You are. You just don't think you are.
Well, no one's actually come out and told me that I take seriously. So first of all, where does the Arsenal passion come from? I mean, I point out I don't know where you were before that because I don't know. Did you grow up in London? How did it all start?
So funny you say. So I went to school at UC Santa Barbara, and I've actually only been in art. It's really bizarre that I'm like working in the soccer football publishing world right now, doing what I'm doing now. When I started supporting Arsenal in 2006. Before that, I think I was a senior in college that year. I didn't even know like how the Champions League places worked. I didn't understand.
You just knew that we got to the final every year, right?
So it was the year. That's the thing. I became an Arsenal fan in 2006, the year they went to the final. Basically, because it was my senior year of college, I pretty much had finished all of my major work. I was just kind of like there fucking around, spring in Santa Barbara, which is gorgeous. It's also a big kind of like party scene. The two of my good friends at Santa Barbara, Matt Dozier and Joaquin Reyes, and of course, in case they're listening, one of whom is Morning Pint on Twitter, and I've been on his podcast a couple of times back in the day. They got me into Arsenal, and it was kind of like, we're going to watch Arsenal play in the Champions League semifinals. And of course, if you're in California, the Champions League games are up until this year, they're at 11:45. I was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but you want to go to the bar at 11:45 and then we're going to go to the beach after? Like, yeah, I'm totally here to like push myself way further in debt and go just like have fun my spring quarter of college. So I think I jumped on. It was probably the quarter semifinals. I would like watch the games and they would just like explain to me what was going on. They're like, oh, it's this competition. They play in Europe, but they might not be in this competition next year, but they might win it because they might finish in this place in like their domestic league in England. And I was just so confused, but I got so into it. Just like the intrigue was wonderful. Like I grew up playing the sport, but I never really followed it as a fan, you know?
So it's been Arsenal for 12 years then. I've said this a lot, but I kind of, after my kids and kind of not being able to follow Arsenal for a number of years when I moved back to the States, 2006 was the year for me as well, where I really hardcore got back into it. Started watching every game. And I mean, it was kind of a weird time to start becoming a supporter, given what the following 5 to 10 years were like, but I commend you for sticking with it.
I mean, it was like you said, right? They go to this final and then they lose, of course, and I didn't really comprehend the gravity of it. It's like, oh, it's whatever. It's this famous team. Like they'll be back in no time. And then
I don't think any of us really comprehended it. But so at Bleacher Report, are you in charge of all football social media? Is it specifically Arsenal? I mean, what is kind of the day-to-day of your position and what you do besides, the occasional beer?
So I work, we have an office in London. We expanded, I've been with the company since 2010. I jumped over onto our UK football team 2014. 2013, we expanded in the UK. I think like probably like that summer, kind of decided that this was like a market that we should hit. It's the most popular sport on the planet. Opened an office in London. They recruited me about 2014. I had a different job and it was kind of like, we need more bodies. We hear this might be something that like you would maybe want to do. And so I work with, it used to be at one point, I think it was like 3 or 4 of us just manning everything 16 hours a day. I mean, we kind of have presence 16 hours a day, I should say. And like the job has evolved vastly because we've grown from 3-4 people now. Our social team in London, I think we've got 15 or 16 total people who work on kind of the tech side, which is what I do. People who are designers who build videos for like Instagram stories and Snapchat. The people I work with most days, we're kind of looking at big games and trying to scheme kind of like every outcome, everything that could possibly happen, and being like, this is something that we think people on social media would like. And it's like, we planned it all in advance. Like we had all kinds of shit planned for the North London Derby, for either outcome, for certain people scoring. And so that's kind of like our day to day.
Like when you have the graphic ready for, the president dying and then you just pull it out when it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So the major splash that Bleacher Report has made lately, and I was warned before this in my chat with Sean beforehand, he has nothing to do with BR Live. So if anybody's gonna start criticizing and whining about the cost, I mean, personally, to me it's the way it's going. I mean, Andy, it's like your urologist always says, if you can pay for like a good uninterrupted stream, I think it's worth it. But I mean, would you pay for a good stream, or would you split it with somebody? Or
I still owe you money for that.
You're not supposed to say.
We're talking about NBC Gold, right?
Yeah, so we're talking about NBC Gold. So yeah, I mean, I watch it at work without the computer getting genital warts, because those other streams that apparently exist, I've never heard of any of them. They will fuck up your computer. So anyway, I was going to ask you about that, but I won't put you on the spot because it is a different department. So whine and complain to somebody else, listeners.
I mean, we have some to do with it, but that's very much. I feel like I shouldn't. Someone who's more financially savvy should talk BR Live. I mean, I don't think it's any secret right now that that's just kind of what media entities are doing. I mean, you saw NBC did it, ESPN is doing it. They got Serie A rights, and then they're pretty much not showing most of it. They're putting it on their streaming service. We just got rights to broadcast the Champions Leagues. I think, I can't really. I don't work on like the revenue size. I'm pretty like.
It's perfect. I think it's the perfect thing to have a streaming system for, because at least in America, it's during the middle of the day, and if you can't make it to the pub in the middle of the day, you want a good, I mean, again, not trying to make the stupid double entendre anymore, but you want a reliable stream. And, you know, other than a few minor complaints, I think it's worked pretty well for the people that have gotten it. So we're able to follow our precious team to the Ukraine and to Azerbaijan, wherever else we end up. So,
Mike, your microphone is making a weird noise, according to Danny. Maybe push it a little bit further away from your face.
Well, you know, this is what happens when you get shitty Missouri hotel Wi-Fi. But at least I've got this. So, you know, we will this is my Hanukkah present to myself for tonight. And if you're listening on iTunes, don't listen on iTunes. Watch us on the pod because you're missing out what I'm talking about.
So let's jump into the meat of this podcast, and we've kind of have a running itinerary. And 55 minutes is going to be the game in Kiev, and then we had a small North London derby. We're going to discuss. We literally have nothing to say about Kiev, so let's.
It was a nifty game.
Nifty game. We sent a good team. Blah blah blah. Mike, this North London derby for the neutral, it had everything. We had penalties. We had a Donnybrook, also known as fisticuffs. There were some good tackles. There were some beautiful goals. Everyone that I know that was at the match said it was the best atmosphere the Emirates has ever seen. I mean, the first 20 minutes was good as I've seen Arsenal play in a very long time in terms of getting the crowd behind them early, being all over Spurs, being physical with them. The quality, the tackling, the pressing, it was everything you want to see in the North London derby. And I thought we were just absolutely sublime.
Yeah, and atmosphere-wise, I mean, I was lucky enough to be at the Liverpool game a few weeks ago, and I asked people around me, I said, you know, that's the best atmosphere I'd ever been to in an Emirates game. And I said, you know, give me some ideas of what was better. And they said Spurs last year, 2-0, Barcelona Champions League game. I don't think anybody would say that it was better than yesterday because even 40,000 feet in the air, watching it from my plane to St. Louis, just the comments that I was getting from people and reading on BBC for the first half an hour of the game, it was clear that this crowd was up for it. The derby is back, and you know, and you guys were shit at updating me. By the way, I had to rely on my son and the Guardian to tell me what was going on, but. Fortunately, the plane landed 35 minutes into the game. I opened up my stream, my legal stream.
I think it was an intentional. We were texting you just bites of Mike Dean sucks, and you're like, about what?
And there was a lot of like, oh my God, with no explanation. I'm like, fuck you. What the hell are you doing? I'm literally just tossing and turning on the plane. My daughter was killing me, but it got a lot worse. Than that, but it seemed obvious that for the first 20 minutes we were on a pace that just was untenable.
Sean, let me ask you this, because I was listening to the Football Ramble on my drive home tonight, and they brought up a really good point. As far as derbies go, there's a lot of you know, you got the Manchester derby, the Liverpool, but in terms of like the stature of games, they were equating our North London derby to that of like the Classico. Not in the sense of like the hatred of just being in one city, but the violence, how big the score lines get, just the utter ridiculousness of it. Sean, can you think of another derby that's as big as the North London one?
I don't like. I feel like what added the allure to this particular one, it came out like you said, it just started so exciting. I feel like after that Eric Dyer goal wasn't what like really sparked the atmospheres. I feel like Arsenal have kind of been labeled as spineless in the past, and seeing
kind of
it just like it was kind of what you wanted from it. Even those like 5-2 games, you know, like Adebayor got sent off, but like they weren't super chippy. Seeing Eric, like we all of us we were irate when that goal went in, but seeing like Ramsey and Guendouzi and Lichtsteiner going over and like telling those guys to fuck off for basically like telling the fans to shush, it was like, oh, this is real. Like this is the atmosphere you want for these type of things, which I think made it just that much more exciting in the end. And I'm not sure, you know, like Manchester United, Liverpool is always
It's always a big
really hyped, but I feel like it's kind of recent years it hasn't really had that same level of like intensity or like spite between them.
I have an idea. I have an idea of, and now I've just seen Bobby Chakraboody, who's clearly up at 3:15 in the morning. He's actually staying up later than Danny. He mentions probably the only one that's at this point any bigger than Arsenal Tottenham, and that might be the Boca River Plate. I think maybe at the moment.
Well, that's just a different level, though, right? That's just obscene and obnoxious. But I was just thinking, from proximity to just how crazy the matches get, and I think if you ask every Tottenham and Arsenal supporter, there's one thing we all have in common, and that's that we love a North London derby. And I think specifically this one for us, it's different because the last 5 seasons, as you mentioned, Mike, have just been these weird, like we're not expecting to come out of these matches with wins, and we're riding 18 games in a row. And
even 2 years ago, I took my son for
yeah.
We went to a derby. It was the one where Bellerin hurt himself, Kane penalty, Trippier own goal. The atmosphere there was, and we had a long undefeated streak at that point as well. The atmosphere was pretty shit that day.
I was also at that game, and I wholeheartedly agree. It was like a noon or a 12:30 kickoff. Yeah, it was cold. It was just kind of like
that. Probably had a lot to do with it, but I mean, it can't have that much to do with it. I mean, it just really was underwhelming. And my son and I were like texting during this derby, and it's like, imagine if we were at this one instead of that one. It is back. It does seem like it's back, and the players and the coaches are the reason that it's back.
It was good to.
Go ahead.
It was good to see how much it meant to the players. I think a lot of these crazy continental, like a lot of these rivalries, like Fenerbahce and Galatasaray, and like the eternal rivalry, they're all crazy. But it's mostly you see it with the fans more than you see it pour onto the pitch. So it was really good to see. Or I mean, it was fun. Like it wasn't like
there's real hatred there. It's not contrived. It isn't driven by the supporters only. I think it's a great point because, you'll see the players be like, okay, well, we got to kind of act like, we don't like each other, but we're all professionals here. The fans truly hate each other.
Well, you think about
the next 3 years of these players playing against each other, as long as Tottenham keeps any of their players over the next 3 years, there's going to be a real hatred now.
Well, you look at where the players live in proximity to both grounds. They all live in the same towns. They're all internationals together. They're like, for the most part, they don't have the love in their hearts like we do. So they're going out for dinner together, and they're bumping into each other. And if you notice, the most passionate 3 people yesterday were Guendouzi, Socrates, and Lichtsteiner, who literally have they don't know anyone on that team, but 2 of those players have been in massive derbies before, and they know what it means. Let's go right to the first goal. We're on the front foot early. We're pressing high, and we win a penalty from that ridiculous handball in the area. Absolutely stupid. It's a Mustafi type of move, Mike. I mean,
except for Tottenham wasn't lying on the ground when he stuck his hand up.
Very true, but even still, I mean, there's absolutely no reason to handball that.
No, and that was another example of your excellent updating, because I see free kick won by Xhaka takes the free kick. Next thing I know, I love Mike D. That's the only information I got. And I'm like, what the fuck? But that's weird things happen in derbies, and I think Mustafi was involved in the first goal last year when we beat him at home. In this case, I think it was Vertonghen trying to keep that from happening again this time. But, you'll take that all day long.
Absolutely. So we still play well. I think that Lloris had maybe 1 or 2 nice saves. We were all over him. And then we concede a free kick. And, Sean, I'll look at you on this first. The free kick comes in, it takes a slight deflection, and it bounces in front of Leno. And, I mean, it's very poor goalkeeping. What are your thoughts on that Leno? We heard a lot when he was in Germany that he creates these blunders. For me as a keeper, when the ball bounces in front of speed. It looked like he was trying to go to his back post, thinking it was going to go cross goal. I mean, do you fear Leno as keeper, or are you just saying, hey, this is one small mistake?
I mean, you're definitely right. I think everyone who saw that was kind of like, I know you got to do better there. Like, get your whole body in front of that. Like, there's no real. I mean, it was bad. It was just bad. There's no other way around it. But I think he's generally been pretty solid this season. He's made some really good he's made some good saves. He's made some mistakes, but I think that's kind of a forgivable. I mean, he's what, like 26 by now? So he's been around.
Forgivable now, that's for sure.
Well, he's been around, but 26 for a keeper is still pretty young. I mean, you'd think most great keepers find their own until 29, 30. And so you get, I think that's their, 29 to 35 is their peak. So he's still a young keeper, he's still learning a lot. Mike, are you concerned about it, or are you just like, hey, this is a one-off fluke?
I mean, there's been a lot of one-offs from him in the last month or so that fortunately haven't cost us 3 points in any games. But, there's the one-off against Liverpool. There's the one-off against Spurs. A lot of one-offs, but, I mean, he's also made some outstanding saves as well. And on balance, I think, I'm not calling for change at this point. I think it's nice to know we got checked there, and for when we need him, if we need him. But until we literally lose a game because of him, until he catches the ball and walks into his own goal, like what's his fucking name did a couple of years ago.
Yeah. The best quality for a keeper is not how many great saves they make; it's how they rebound from a mistake, right? And he had to step him. It was a couple times he had to step up and make some big shot stops in that match, and so he shook it off pretty quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on the second goal they scored, but I do want to ask you both if you think it was a penalty. And while you're thinking of your answer, all I'm going to say is, yeah, there was he touched him, right? And I get that. Someone in The Guardian wrote a great article today saying that there doesn't necessarily have to be contact for it to be a penalty, and I get that. But the law states it's either man plays man or man plays ball. Okay? Son over-embellished that, and in my opinion, if you're going to call that a penalty, you have to call every tussle on a corner kick a penalty, because there's more tomfoolery and grabbing of shirts and pushing on a corner. If Son doesn't embellish that, I don't think it gets called a penalty. He's a cheating fuck. It's what we expect from that team because they've got a lot of them. But maybe you guys see it differently. I don't know. I will say this. Holding went in so fucking fast, even on slow replay. It looks like he's going at speed. Personally, I thought it was a good challenge. He lightly touches him, but come on. I mean, for me, it's not a pen.
I thought it was Mustafi when I saw the guy just go sliding. I mean, I literally had to watch it 3 times before I realized it was holding. And then of course, because he's not Mustafi, everything's fine. But I don't think I could say it any better than you did, so I won't bother. I mean, if you're going to call that, you got to call so many other things. Son doesn't have to go down like he's shot. That was the type of thing where you could go down halfway and then get back up again. And if you want to call it a penalty, just be consistent about it. Otherwise, it's not. But I mean, the one villain there. I mean, fuck you, Mike Dean. But look, Son is the villain there. He deserved what he got at the end of the game, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm also with you guys.
Not what I heard some Spurs supporters claiming he was racially abused. I wasn't there. I can't say whether he was racially abused. It was kind of their yeah but moment for the whole banana thing, which we'll talk about. But
they had a lot of yeah but moments yesterday.
Yeah, there's a lot of yeah but moments. There's your dad moments. There's everything. But I mean, it didn't seem to me, and I haven't read anything that says he was racially abused. He was abused for being a diving cunt, which is 5 of them. And Pochettino's come out and basically said that he teaches them to do that.
Yeah. It's not a surprise with that team.
I didn't when it happened on replay. I was like, "That's not a penalty. You can't call that." I guess I could see why, aside from the fact that Mike Dean being fucking Mike Dean, in real time, that being very fast, I could see with the angle he had, maybe thinking it was a penalty. But yeah, he went down so easy. I mean, he didn't really help himself out by, like you said, he went in like Mustafi. It's like it's tough when you make that kind of challenge in that area and you've got someone who's prone to diving. It puts the referee in a position like that. But
Sean, Andy, in our chat, we are graced by the lovely James, who lives in Boston by way of South Korea. And he is a Gooner, but he says very helpfully, he says, as a totally biased Korean football fan, I say, yeah, Son looked for it. So Arsenal is greater than the connection from country. Club over country is basically what we're learning today.
Listen, I mean, you know, it poses the question, if England were in a World Cup final, it's 0-0 in the 92nd minute, Dele Alli flops over in the box and you get a penalty, are you mad? It's kind of like,
no,
you're not.
Because it's coming home at that point.
Exactly. At the end of the day, in hindsight, it doesn't matter. But for me, there just needs to be a better look from the Premier League, and maybe it will be with VAR next season, and they look at the rule. But you know, that's a completely different debate. Does VAR overrule what Mike Dean saw? Who knows? But let's move on, because at halftime we're down 2-1. I feel like from the penalty to halftime, we weren't out of the match. I think we were knocked for 6, but there's one thing I love about Unai, Mike, is he doesn't care when he needs to substitute, and we saw him bring on Ramsey and Lacazette, who both have an immediate impact. But I read today that if the matches at this point in the season ended at halftime, we would be second from bottom. And there's no other team that's turned over as many points in the second half of a match than we have. And you got to give credit to Unai and his team for that. But to be able to just have the nous to say to two players, hey, it's just not working, let's move on. That's confidence in your players, right? And you know, they were both brilliant, absolutely both brilliant. And we see Ramsey connect with Oba on one of what I think is going to be one of the goals of the season. I mean, absolutely unreal. Had a total Thierry Henry finish to it. It was just sublime.
Oh, and I love me some now, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Ding.
I didn't bring the bell with me to Missouri, unfortunately. But yeah, this team is never out of a game. It's crazy. I mean, I don't love the fact that we keep going behind, but for better or worse, we know how to play from that position. You know, and we never hang our heads. So before we talk about the goal, though, this is the point where now I'm off the plane. I go into this restaurant in the terminal. I said, Allie, here's a compromise. I'm going to show you a college, or university that you can go to. We're going to wait 45 minutes before we drive there, though, because I got to watch the second half of this game. So we walk into this place. We asked them to put it on the television because they had like Leipzig on or something like that. And the guy goes, "Oh, Arsenal. That's the guy that the owner of that team is Kroenke, right?" And then I realized where I am. I'm in St. Louis, where Stan Kroenke has just ripped the NFL team away from and moved them to LA. And I'm quickly like, yeah, it's his team, but we all fucking hate him. We hate him. So then we made fast friends at that point. But yeah, the goal, I lost my shit in the restaurant, and people were laughing at me. My daughter was frightened. She was, I just let out a yelp. That goal was sublime. I mean, in a year where we have had so many good team goals that start in our end and end up with a sublime finish, that's just the latest in the series of them. I mean, Bellerin on that play.
Oh, yeah.
World-class through ball. I'm blanking on who it was that basically just teed the ball up for Aubameyang. I got to think maybe it was Lacazette.
It was
Ramsey. Oh, jeez. I mean, the 60, 70 yards in about 3 seconds and a one-time finish from Aubameyang. It's ridiculous. I mean, the next time he misses a sitter, Aubameyang, and he will, because he does from time to time, just remember that goal and what he's capable of.
Right.
Yeah, it was. I think Ramsey and Bellerin are both in the top 5 in assists in the league now, which makes sense that they were like so critical to the build-up in that. I did love what Aubameyang tweeted after the game, and he tweeted a picture of himself with that finish, because I know like he scored so many goals this season, but the criticism has been like, oh, they're all like tap-ins. Like he's been right place, he's been set up, and he was just
there have been a lot of like well crossed tap-ins in front of goal where he's moved well off the ball, but the finish hasn't been that hard. You're right.
But yeah, I love that he put out afterwards, just like he was aware of this criticism. He was like, you guys, I love me a tap-in, but like put some respect on my name, and had him taking a shot from outside the box. It's like, oh, that man, love him.
I'm wearing his shirt tonight in honor.
Well, you know, and the thing of it is I think we talked about it last week or the week before. You just heard so much negativity about him coming in, and it just seems like he's found his home quickly, and he loves scoring a goal, and he was extremely passionate. And Mike, I want to give a quick shout out to Bellerin, because every time shit kicked off, he was one of the first players.
Absolutely.
There. And you know, for the last 2 seasons, we've all questioned his desire in an Arsenal shirt. And I think this season we've not only seen him grow as a player, but now we're seeing him grow as a fan favorite because of what he did this, not even just yesterday, but he's been squaring up a couple times this season. It's nice to see that. And it's nice to see the leadership from him.
Who might have something to do with that? Who do you think may have some influence over Bellerin and his intensity level?
Well, we're going to get to that man in a little while.
Yes, we will.
But let's go to the Laka goal, because again, wow. I mean, we're lucky it took a tad deflection off of Dyer. But Mike, he was slipping when he took that shot, and I think Lloris gets to it, but Dyer can go fuck himself.
Yeah, I mean,
better way to shove it up a man's ass who shushes our fucking own fans than scoring an own goal. I'm gonna call it an own goal because it went in off his knee, but just again, the best way for us to score.
If you're gonna call it an own goal just to stick it to Dyer, I'll give you that. But
that's all I'm gonna do. That's all I'm doing it for.
But the amount of spin he had on that, the amount of curl he had, basically, like, took the deflection out of the picture. Like I would be fascinated if they could have like somehow mocked up how that ball would have gone, like projected where that ball would have gone if it hadn't been deflected versus being deflected. Because when it's coming out that fast with that much top spin or in swinging spin on it, I don't know that the deflection really took it that far off of where it was going. I'd like to think it just basically like went through his leg rather than clicked off of it. But Lacazette that was one of those goals where you're like, you've just blown it. You've just blown it. You've just blown it.
Well, and you know, Sean, it's kind of like Aubameyang and Lacazette have this whatever you can do, I can do better, which is great for us because I remember years and years ago, Perez and Henry kept doing that, and they even came out in the press. It was like, who's going to one up the other one in a match? And you know, as long as it stays friendly on the training ground, who gives a shit? I mean, these two guys are firing on all cylinders, and it's a great way for him to come back. And again, the passion and what it meant to him to score in this game was just it was unreal.
I was happy for him too because I feel like last year he kind of started decently enough, then he kind of like fell off, and people were kind of like, is he going to be a flop? And when he was really struggling, when he was maybe hurt, he missed like that game at Wembley where Tottenham won, and they outplayed Arsenal. Like Arsenal, he had a chance to equalize, I think, right at the death, and he just missed something, and it was just kind of like, oh well. So I think it showed how happy he was, and just like it was just great to see. You know, he got that goal, and it was like. It's a good angle. And also, like, what you're saying about Aubameyang, I want to say, I forget which of the two said it. It may have been Lacazette. They've got a great bromance going on. And I think when Aubameyang came in, one of them went on the record as saying, like, I don't know if I'm going to like this guy too much because they're basically competing for the same spot. And then they just, like, hit it off right away. And they play great together, and it's just so obvious how much they like each other because they always celebrate together, and it's just, I don't know, it's good to see.
Yeah, and
what else is good to see, by the way, is people in the chat room. I want to give a shout out real quick before we move on, thank you, James, for being in there. Fredo under a pseudonym today. Bobby, he's probably up the latest of anybody right now. I even want to give a shout out to Corey, who has announced that this pod is shit without Ola. This pod is shit with Ola.
That's very true.
It's shit all the time. So I mean, we'll take that as a compliment.
It's shittier without Ola.
It is shittier without Ola. Anything in life is shittier without Ola. But thank you, Ryan, for being in here. Mike Hernandez, of course, Justin, everybody else that's in the chat right now, spending your evening with us. We appreciate it. And then
it's about
there's more goals.
It's about time to get Kerry on this damn pod because he's showing up every week to listen to us. We got to get him on as a guest.
We do. We should have gotten Kerry and his scum brother. And I don't mean his brother's scum, but he actually is a Tottenham fan. Should have probably thought about that. But when you can get a guy like Sean on, you have to do that. So.
So
that wasn't meant to sound as dickish as it came out. We're very happy to have you on.
It's Sean. Hey.
We paid the money. We might as well have him on because it was non-refundable.
It's true. If the season were to end today, I think that, well, I know for me, and I think I'll speak for Mike, regardless of how many great goals Aubameyang and Lacazette keep scoring, I think our player of the season would be Lucas Torreira. And, for 5-6 seasons, we've been wanting this type of player. And he came to the club, and we were desperate to see him, and he wasn't getting the playing time. And Unai came out and said, hey, it's because he's down the pecking order, and he needs to, and I think the English part, but holy shit. Yesterday, he was my man of the match. The amount of challenges he put in to break up play. I mean, he absolutely destroyed Spurs single-handedly. And what a goal to score, or a debut goal to score in a North London derby. I mean, Mike, he not only broke up the play to create that counterattack, but typically as a defensive mid, when you're that far up the field, your first thought is, I'm way too high up the field. I need to get back. He didn't think that. He saw where this play could go. He took that through ball, cool finish, amazing celebration. I mean, the guy was almost weeping in Bellerin's arms. But can we say it now? Is he our favorite Arsenal player of all time?
He is officially our favorite Arsenal player of all time.
I fucking love that man.
Yeah, is it time to change this podcast to a Torreira Wonderland?
Oh my god, we should definitely do. I mean, I love, how much I love a broken duck, but this one to come against Tottenham for the presumptive Ballon d'Or winner, PFA Player of the Year, heartbeat of the team. Breaks the duck in the North London derby, and then the emotion. I mean, some players played for Arsenal for 10 years and never got to the point where they really showed that much emotion. I mean, I don't mean to completely slam Theo Walcott, but did I actually just say that? No, because I know he loved the team, and I know he had some great celebrations as well. But the guy's been with the team for 4 months, and clearly loves it, clearly feels like he's at home. And he's like having 3 players on the pitch at the same time, and you don't actually have to take anyone else off. It's amazing. Yeah. And the guy, when you have a pedicure, Andy, the women there find more change in between your toes than we paid for him from Sampdoria. I mean, that Dick Law must have moved to Sampdoria over the summer because we stole that motherfucker.
I would love to know, in the scheme of Unai joining, where Torreira, when he had that original meeting, if it was this is a player I'm desperate for, or if Sven and the team had already identified him, because it kind of all started happening around at the same time. But Sean, I mean, has there been a player in the last couple of seasons that's had a bigger impact for Arsenal than Lucas Torreira?
No. Absolutely. I mean, like you said,
bigger positive impact. I can think of something that had a bigger impact, but
I mean, the goal was just great. I mean, the celebration, like you said, like he's been here for such a short time. He don't know how much. When he came over, he talked about how this is a huge change. This is a 22-year-old guy moving to a city where doesn't know the language yet. He's been in Italy for however many years. And he comes in and he scores a goal and he's like ripping his shirt off. And it was just, I mean, it was great. There was a sequence, I can't remember exactly when it was, but they were like focusing in close on him and there were like two Spurs guys. And he was just like relentless and he kept, I can't remember if he lost, he wound up winning the ball back. And it was like, this is what Arsenal have needed for so long. And also, Granit Xhaka has been kind of, he hasn't been a miss. He hasn't been a flop. He's had some like really wonderful moments. He's also had a lot of bad moments. He has made the best of Granit Xhaka. Like Granit Xhaka turned from kind of like a whipping boy, like he can't tackle, he can't defend, he's a yellow card, to all of a sudden, everyone like people don't have problems with Xhaka anymore because he's finally got the perfect partner.
Well, some people do, but hey, I mean, it couldn't.
Like, who's been saying since day one that Granit Xhaka will improve with the correct defensive midfielder behind him?
This guy.
You piece of shit.
No. I mean, and I've quickly bought into that and agreed with you on that, and that's been my defense of Granit Xhaka through all of his early season struggles. Is we haven't seen him a game, 2-3 games in a row playing with the right partner. And you know, I agree. I mean, it'd be nice if Granit Xhaka made himself better, no matter who he was playing with. But he's the right guy for that spot when it's right next to Torreira. That's for sure. And we'll talk in a few minutes about what we might miss on Wednesday by not having him there. And we will also talk about that play that you mentioned, Sean, where he just absolutely just destroyed Dele Alli and Eriksen, probably the two of the three best players on Tottenham at one time. But you want to talk about the most important part of that goal, don't you?
Yes, and for those who didn't catch it, there's definitely a lot of video going around. Stefan runs over to
You're not going to make the Liechtensteiner mistake and add a bunch of syllables to his name?
Liechtenstein. Happy Hanukkah to him, too. He runs in to do the celebration knee slide, totally hits a dry patch, and it was a bite the pillow, bitch, I'm coming in dry, because that motherfucker flipped over.
Yeah, James, who's in the chat room, sent me a text about how you rate his performance in that celebration. He gave it a 6.5, which I can only imagine is like Olympic ice skating, where it's out of 6 and not out of 10. Because if it's a 6.5 out of 10, I'm sorry, you're high. That was a fucking 11 out of 10. That celebration, and I again still in the airport. I promised Ali I wouldn't yell if it happened again. So instead, the third goal and the fourth goal, I'm like freaking Elaine Nardo dancing on Seinfeld. Like I'm trying to maintain my excitement without making any noise, and I look like I was getting electrocuted, but just having spasms. But I mean that was the celebration of the year. I think. I mean, there's got to be like a Puskas Award for celebrations, because Lichtsteiner would win it.
I honestly didn't even notice it in real time. I think just because I was running around our office celebrating. And so,
do you have a home, by the way, or are you just always in the office?
Well, I had to work yesterday at 8 West Coast time, so the game kicked off at 6:05, and so I can't go to Maggie's, the Arsenal pub in San Francisco, and still make it to work by 8. So I came in the office and watched it at 6. And my Arsenal friend, who usually comes to the pub with me, came and watched it. And we were just like running around like assholes in this empty office celebrating that goal. And then it wasn't until today where I saw images of Lichtsteiner falling. It's like, how the fuck did I not see that? That would have been beautiful.
It was great.
Oh, it was absolutely superb. And, it just made the entire just moment and day better.
And by the way, Mr. Fantasy Football winning streak, Mr. Andy Rhodes WhatsApp partner, Mr. Judges, keep complaining about Lichtsteiner as a poor signing, okay? Keep it up, because you didn't have any idea he had that in his locker.
No, he didn't. Bald motherfucker. Oh.
Frenemies with Andy. He's just a flat-out buddy of mine. But
so we see out a 4-2 victory, even after the fourth goal. I never felt that we were ever under threat. obviously I think the win was taking out of Spurs' sails, but they pushed. We see that there was a red card, and I think Dean got it correct. It wasn't necessarily the challenge; it was the height and the fact that his studs were showing. All in all, I thought Dean, outside of the Son penalty, for as much as he loves Spurs, he had a decent match. And Mike, I was listening to ESPN FC. They did a little kind of breakdown of the match, and you know how much I love those guys. Not, but they were saying how the way
Craig Burley.
Yeah, the way we celebrated off the pitch after the match with the Instagram posts and everything like that was a little bit outrageous. But they were like, the caveat to that is this is a different Arsenal, and they've lived in that tough time, and this is just, hey, this is a new Arsenal, this is a new celebration, and they even kind of related it back to the fans and said, this is what it means now. This is a new team, and give them this celebration. It's not like before with the locker room selfies. There was heated moments on the pitch, and people were yelling stuff to Ramsey, and he didn't get that moment to get his comeback, and so he did it on Instagram, and it just shows that these guys are unified and they enjoy being in each other's company, and I thought it was wonderful. It's great to see us in that light, but I don't want to get used to it, and I think Unai said it today. Game's done, dusted. We're already in the training ground preparing for Wednesday, which is an even bigger match.
Yeah, I mean, there's no need right now for act like you've been there before.
No, because look at Tottenham. They go from Chelsea elation to this, and that could easily happen to us in 48 hours.
But what I'm saying is you give them that celebration all day. You don't criticize them for saying, champions don't celebrate like that after a Premier League win. This was a big one. This was, and I know we beat them last year 2-0, under very different circumstances, but this was the time to basically say we've arrived and we're not fucking rolling over for anybody anymore. Now, we go and do the business up in Manchester against 12-year-old center backs and fullbacks. Then you walk around, you shake hands, you clap you clap to the crowd, and you act like you've been there before. But not on Sunday. That was
that's different.
Purely needed. It was a cathartic. Like, we almost did it against Liverpool, and it was a moral victory. Now we have done it in an even bigger game, and it just they're out there for 15 minutes, just doing. I mean, not a lap of honor per se, but I just thought it was beautiful, and Socrates, man.
The moment, yeah, that was
I love Socrates, but I really fell in love with him after that. I mean, it just destroyed. Sorry, James, destroyed Son Heung-min after the game. First with the Dikembe Mutombo thing, and then the two-handed dive gesture. These guys are making me fall in love with them, and I don't fall in love with guys easily. Except for you, Andy. Except for Joey Murphy. Sorry, Sean.
Oh, it's all good. When we were talking about the signings they made over the summer, when they signed, I don't know if Lichtsteiner, Socrates, Torreira. Torreira's proved to be absolutely incredible, but I like them because there's already a lot of talent in this team. These guys are kind of assholes, and that's kind of what you need. And Socrates standing over Kane, Socrates talking shit to Son after the game. Lichtsteiner didn't play, but he was out there mixing up with Dyer after he told him to shush. It's these are backbone guys, and I feel like that's something that's kind of been sorely. It's something that's been missing.
Anyone who says you can solve our problems with a $55 to $65 million player, whoever it is, just go out and splash the cash. Don't get a 34-year-old backup right back. Don't get this unheard of guy or this guy who's really kind of on the tail end of his career and wasn't really impressing at Dortmund. It is a chemistry set more than it is just a compilation of talent. We are not Galacticos. We're never going to be Galacticos. So we need to get the chemistry right on this club. We need to get players who complement talent with mentality. And that was something I just don't think he understood previously in our former management, both manager and player personnel people, and now they do.
and you look at some of the best managers in the world. I mean, Jose Mourinho did it with Porto. He did it with his first 2 seasons at Chelsea. It wasn't, hey, I need players that are these $1 million signings. I mean, Arjen Robben was relatively unknown, and he brings him to Chelsea because he needed that left winger. He needed a left attacking player, and so he kind of fit in where he had it, where he needed it. And I just think that Unai's doing that perfectly. And it's like, hey, you have one of the best right backs in the world. Hey, let's go ahead and look at someone who can bring in, and we can bring in and fix this guy's attitude, this guy's off-field approach. And so I kind of want to talk to you too a little bit about Ramsey. This man has been told he isn't needed by the club, whether that's because his wages are too high. We don't know, and we won't know until he's long gone, right? But he, most people when they hand in their 2-week notice or they know they're leaving a company, they check out. And we haven't seen that from him, Mike. We haven't seen the Alexis Sanchez type of shenanigans. Yesterday, for me, was heartbreaking because he comes on, he makes a huge difference. He was getting the supporters involved on and off the pitch. He showed passion after every goal. I'm going to miss him, Mike. I wish he would stay at the club. I wish they could figure out something. But, is it too late? Is he gone already? I mean, if you're Unai, you can't trust a player to come on in North London Derby and say to him, make a change. If there isn't a way back, if there isn't an opportunity for him to get back into this team and sign a long-term deal.
He's a Gooner. He is, and Sanchez wasn't, and I'm not sure Ozil is, but he is. And as much as I've been, very, very adamant about this, I'm not going to miss him. If he didn't sign he had the contract available to him for however long.
Well, we're being told that. We don't know. We don't know.
And I have a question for Sean, an opinion question for Sean about that. But Fredo mentioned to us that it's like the worst slow breakup ever. Like the person's going to leave and you're okay with it, but then they do something that you like so much, like that thing with your perineum that you like, Andy, you told me about. Mm-hmm. And then you start wondering whether you've been overthinking things. I mean, to me, there's one solution to this that would work, and that would be if he fires his agent. If he says, "I'll take $200,000 a week. I wanted to stay here. I'm sorry it didn't go the way that I wanted to go. I want to be a Gooner, and I want to be a Gooner legend."
Is he worth $200,000 a week? And I know you said you had a question for Sean, but Sean, you can answer this and then loop into Mike's. Is he worth $200,000 a week, knowing that he's not going to start every match, but when he comes on, he's going to have that impact? The fact that he's been at this club long enough that he deserves a testimonial, does that give him the opportunity to get a $200,000 a week contract? And maybe we incentivize him. Maybe we say, hey, the goals and assists count for a lot more, and so there's more on the back end. But is he worthy of that type of a handout, considering how long and what kind of a servant he's been for us?
And we're saying 200, not 250, which is
200,
which is what we believe he's asking for.
Yeah, I mean, he's my thing with Ramsey is I feel similarly that he's been so good for the club. He's sometimes infuriating as a player because he's somewhat inconsistent. He's also been played out of position at times. He's had, God knows how many midfield partners, and I kind of feel like the end of the Wenger era, as much as I love Wenger, like a lot of the players who struggled kind of should be given new life. Everything I've read about Ramsey is that, and again, like you were saying, it probably has a lot to do with his agent, is that they have kind of bloated ideas of how much they're worth because they gave so much money to the likes of Ozil when he signed new contracts. When Aubameyang came, when Mkhitaryan came, they apparently gave them these massive, massive contracts. And now it's all of a sudden, if you're Ramsey, you scored some big goals, you've been player of the season, you've won 2 FA Cups. And of course you think well, I should get what's mine, even if, I don't know, he's probably not a 250 a week player. So I feel like it's probably just made the entire situation between the club and the player a bit awkward.
I think everybody could kind of make things okay if we just made the agent the fall guy, which frankly I think he is to begin with. Which goes to my question of you: 100% of the blame split between three entities: Ramsey himself, Ramsey's representation, and Arsenal. And blame, I mean, like if he leaves on a free and it's over, how do you apportion the 100% of blame between those three entities?
Well, the only way you can do that, Mike, is if Unai and his team know of a player that's going to come in, take less wage, and be a better player on paper.
But that wasn't the question, though. I mean, like if it all goes south.
Well, I don't think we can ever answer the question fully because we'll never know fully where the whole contract debacle, like where it actually fell. I mean, there's rumors it was on the table for a long time. He sat on it. You know, was it his agent telling him that? Was it like who knows, right? All I know is around the time that contract was on the table, his wife was giving birth to twins. So I don't know about you, but when my kid was born, for 2 or 3 weeks, life just kind of goes out the window. And it's
you didn't sign any fucking contract I tried to put in front of you.
You know, I get that a lot of money, but at the end of the day, it's like family's important. So I don't think we'll ever know. What I do know, Mike, is, you know, we're gonna miss him as a player, and what he brought to the team yesterday, and we see what he did in those 2 FA Cups, as Sean mentioned. I mean, he not only won the FA Cups, he won us those FA Cups. You know, hey, he scored the goals.
Yeah, and the same person put both of those goals on a silver platter for him. I'm not saying they were tap-ins, but if he's a legend for winning 2 FA Cups, then so is Giroud. That's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, like, listen. There's certain players that are going to go down in Arsenal folklore, and Giroud's one of them, right?
By the way, Sean, the first one when we won the FA Cup, I was at Maggie McGarry's. That was so.
Oh, no shit! In 2014.
Yeah, 24. I was on my way to Napa, and I caught that one at Maggie's. So
I was there dancing on the stage, screaming at some point.
I remember that actually.
So, Mike, that wraps up our North London derby, and you know, it's nice to pod, and we're, like you said, 19. Let's get to 20 on Wednesday.
To 20. Couple. I'm just going to mention this because we're obligated to, because it's a big story. Banana dude, absolutely disgusting. Spurs, like, really. I mean, and I haven't heard too many Spurs supporters or fanboys who have condoned or not actually completely come out against the guy. Have you heard that he's trying to act like he didn't mean it racially? He just picked it up off the ground and threw it because he was angry they scored, and then later thought,
okay, guy.
Apparently, the police didn't consider, like, they nailed him for throwing a missile, but they didn't nail him for it being a hate crime. So they took his word for it. But I mean, if you didn't mean that racially, then you are a fucking idiot. I guess that's
there was
better.
Non-racial about it, Mike. The guy should be, and he will be banned for life.
Well, he has been banned for life, whether he appeals that or not, whatever. But
Spurs for doing that too, because at the end of the day, they're going to ban him from all home games as well. And so you got to give the club credit for jumping on it and
yeah. Now they need to jump on the other thing.
Yeah, but that's a debate for another day.
That is a debate for another day. Speaking of ridiculous, did you see Jurgen Klopp's celebration after they won the derby?
I need to go back and look. I heard. I saw he got fined.
He ran to the fucking center circle during the game.
He was fine. He was charged. And it was such like a weird, for people who are slagging off Arsenal for celebrating their derby win, like Liverpool won on a fluke goal at the end of the game, and it was.
I mean, I'm all for an excitable manager. I'll get his lads pumped up. I've been saying I love Klopp for that. But that was fucking ridiculous. And, I'm glad that I don't have to just like yearn for someone who's intense like that anymore, because now we have it. But our guy has much better teeth. Much better teeth. So, I don't have to be jealous anymore. But that is just a loon maniac. All right, we got some user questions. We got a lot of them today, actually. So we're going to go rapid fire. Instead of kind of doing a round table, we're going to go rapid fire. So, Sean, from Fredo, better goal, Aubameyang's second goal the non-penalty, Lacazette's or Torreira's? Which one was better?
I think Aubameyang's was best, but I enjoyed Torreira's most for the same reasons we already waxed about Torreira. It like Aubameyang's was great. It was great. It was like lovely. It was well taken, but like Torreira's was just inject that shit into my veins. It was just like the narrative, the finish. Like
Obama's was like a fine opera, and Torreira's was like fucking System of a Down.
Yes,
yeah, exactly. It's a rock. It was a rock.
That was awesome. From Vishad, Andy, now that we've taken out the I love this question. Now that we've taken out the trash and gotten rid of the shit in our front lawn, who's going to shovel a pile of misery on Manure United? Who takes Xhaka's spot in midfield? Because as we all know, Xhaka is not able to play in Manchester due to accumulation.
That's a good question. Obvious answer is Guendouzi. Even Ramsey could drop back there, but I think Guendouzi will go in. And I thought, the last couple matches he's come on, he's played well. We've never played great when him and Torreira in the team together. So I'm wondering if Ramsey slots in where Xhaka is, because you need that more pinpoint passer. Mike, the last time we played Manchester United during a week fixture at Old Trafford, we won the cup. We won the Premier League when Will Tord scored. So got some good vibes going in, and I'm sure that Unai will mention that to the boys once or twice.
By the way, Sean, Andy, you probably don't know this, but Andy is actually English.
Yes.
He's just lived in America a long time. And if you heard how he just pronounced Old Trafford, it will become more obvious. But there's a car alarm going on. Now I'm living in
Guys, Mike's actually on the run. And Mike, I just want to say that as a fugitive, doing a live podcast, not a good idea.
And talking about where you are. I've ensconced my daughter in her own hotel room as a Hanukkah present because my snoring last night was brutal. So congratulations, happy Hanukkah to Allie. But from Kerry McCollum, whose brother, as we talked about, is a Tottenham Hotspur supporter. Kerry, I told you picked the right club. I'm sure you're feeling good about it now. Which Torreira moment impressed you the most? Sean, you've talked about the one for you. I mean, is it the stoppage time thing at the end of the first half where he's basically lying down, takes the ball off at Dele Alli and Eriksen, or is it the goal?
I think taking the ball off him. The first goal was great because it's been a long time coming, and if you watch their training videos, he's a really great shooter. He's actually really good at taking set pieces, but for what Arsenal needs is someone like that who can they needed like a N'Golo Kanté type destroyer who's just like blue collar, get the ball back. That, like, when that happened, I was just hands to the ground like, holy shit, this is the guy.
He was jokingly at the time talked about a cross between Kanté and who was the other? Santi Cazorla. And he's turning into more of that than I actually ever expected him to. But I would agree that, that's an example of what he does for us. It changes games. It changes attitudes. And, he does seem to fancy a shot a little bit more than he did in the early part of the season, especially from distance. But yeah, that just, for all we know, Tottenham could have scored 5 seconds after that play if he doesn't get in there and take the ball off of them. This is more of a comment, but I'll direct this to you, Andy, because you are living this. But an update from Nathan at YoungN8T on the performance of Kroenke Sports Management Team.
Well, Nathan is in the Springs. I've met him a couple times at the pub.
Nice. Well, he just wants everybody to understand that the Nuggets, Denver Nuggets basketball team, top of the Western Conference, your Colorado Avalanche, Andy, at or near the top of the Western Conference. LA Rams are runaway favorites for the Super Bowl this year, in the playoffs already, and Arsenal, 4th place and unbeaten in 19 games. So,
Well, Mike, I'm going to correct you. We are in the Central Division. But
I was reading the question literally. So blame fucking Nathan.
Well, we did get moved recently, but the point is, Mike, is there's a common denominator, right? All teams are winning with young coaches, and all teams are doing well. And I know that from a Nuggets and Avalanche and Arsenal perspective, there's one common denominator, and that's Josh Kroenke, not Stan. So, the more money he makes from these teams winning, the better we're going to see. I mean, over in the U.S., if he keeps putting money in his pocket, what Nathan didn't mention is that the Colorado Rapids were probably the worst team of the MLS.
But you won that stupid fucking cup against some Mexican team.
The Western Union Cup preseason friendly?
They beat like the Guadalajara Trujillos or something like that. All right, so maybe the Kroenke dynasty is turning. From our buddy James in Boston, who we've mentioned about 39,000 times tonight, is Torreira the most important player at the moment in terms? And this is where I don't understand what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing, James. In terms of whose serious injury would most badly impact our progress. Fuck you. Why do you got to go and do this? You got to bring in the whole concept of him getting hurt.
Let's just skip this because
we're going to
skip a bad question.
I'm going to skip it out of spite for that, as one of our friends likes to say, that was a stupid question.
I'm going to knock on some wood too right here.
We should all knock on some wood.
I'm knocking on beer bottles. I'm knocking on the Bible. Dude, Baruch. Okay. That probably broke all kinds of rules. All right, and last question. Actually, no, we have two. Mike Hernandez, with Rob Holding improving so much under Unai, and I would add to that, he's probably improving equally as much because of Carlos Carcedo and Steven Lichtsteiner. But with him improving so much under Unai, is there still a need to go into the market for another center back in the summer?
Yeah, I think there is. Well, no. If Koscielny comes back and he's fully fit and he's good to go, then not until the summer. But
not until he's saying in the summer because I agree with you about Koscielny, but I'm not counting on Koscielny any longer.
If we start playing three at the back and one of those guys get hurt, we fucked because there's no one right now, and we're not sure Koscielny.
Mavropanos is coming back, baby.
Yeah, maybe Mavropanos, and there's been some Instagram stories with him in training, so maybe. But for as good as Holding's been, you still want to have reinforcement. You still want to have guys that push you. I'm not entirely convinced Mustafi, even though I thought he was sublime yesterday. He was absolutely incredible. I would still look at that, but I don't think it's our number one need. Honestly, if I were looking at it, it's got to be a center mid.
Yep. Well, or a winger.
I'm waiting to see for the same reasons you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. And we haven't really been playing in a position, Mike, where we're desperate for a winger. And I think Iwobi has, like Holding, done enough to step up where, yesterday, but there were a lot of moments where he was creating the movements going forward. And I think there were one or two opportunities in the box where he got dispossessed. But he's going to get better.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Corey. He says, could we swap Mustafi for Adam? Fuck Humber. Now, that's a guy who's been listening to the podcast for a long time. I love you, Corey, even though you said fucking that we suck without Ola. I love the chat room. They're all giving James absolute hell for even bringing that into the universe, as Mike Hernandez says. We had one other question from Danny, and I was going to read it when he was here, but he's gone now. It had to do about MLS teams in the English football pyramid, and I want to end on a high, which is Mavropanos coming back. So we'll answer that in a future podcast or just in direct WhatsApp chat. But the Redskins have lost, so that sucks.
That's good.
Yeah.
Too bad it's to the Geagles, but
yeah, really. So so apparently I have a setting for the chat room where I didn't mean to set it this way, but I actually have to approve posts that are as mild as "you're ugly" and "you fat." So literally all night tonight, I've been approving posts that had even the mildest profanity or anger in them. I will have to fix that because my goal is to have any post go through no matter what it says. But that's about it. It's a good time to be a Gooner, man. It is a good time to be a Gooner. Wednesday, I hate feeling optimistic about games. I can't remember. When's the last time we won at Old Trafford, other than maybe the FA Cup when Welbeck scored. I mean,
2006.
Really?
September 17, 2006. Sorry, we were.
I mean, we did win there, I think, in the Welbeck game, but.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. In the league, that's the last time. This is like a thing that I do for work is look up, and it's like, oh shit. Yeah.
It's ridiculous, Andy. I've just I've embargoed that post that you said. The one that I've turned down is the one from Andy in the chat.
I said, "Fuck the Birds. How about them Cowboys?"
Yeah, that's not appropriate for this forum.
Justin Cassavant did hashtag Go Birds, and I wanted to let him know I'm fully against that hashtag.
But please listen to all of our podcasts, though.
Yes.
So that's going to be it. It's been fun. It's late. Thank you, Bob, for Chakrabarti from London, for sticking with us the entire time. It is 4:15 in the morning, and I've met Bob. I know Bob. It doesn't surprise me at all that he's up. It doesn't surprise. Then does it surprise you that he's up at 4:15 in the morning?
Surprises me that anyone even listens to this. So yeah, a little bit.
Well, thank you to our listeners. Please, as we were almost complimented for not saying, please pound on that like button, the thumbs up, subscribe, tell all your friends, tell both of your friends, and we'll be back on at some point to probably discuss the next 2 games at once, because we like 2 things at once. So that's about it. Come on, you Gooners.